So welcome to my podcast. Thank you so much for being here. I've wanted to have you on. I talk about you almost every podcast because I'm like, all right, I can only share my personal experience. I can't tell you the clinical reason behind X, Y, and Z, but my sister can. Hi. Yeah. So I'm like, so this is my personal experience, disclosure. And, I obviously we used some of people watching this will know us, will just obviously know us and then know us from our Twin Tree Healing days when we did videos together and we had nowhere to shoot and our faces we would just like next to each other. So and close. It would just be two heads and then we would talk about all the things that we love to talk about. No. Yeah. So look at us. I wonder where they are. They're somewhere. There's on some computer. I might not have that computer anymore. But yeah, I mean, so here we are now. I was going to say, we're not Skyping, we're Zooming, we're Google Meeting. Yeah. We're Google Meeting. Yeah. From Colorado and California. So it's a different chapter, different season, but different season. Way different season. Thank you. Seriously. Thank you for this season. So yes, I'd like to have you on in general often because I love your insight. I love what you do, what you're doing in the world as a therapist is enormous. And I don't know. And for therapists in general, especially if they happen to be listening to this, especially seeing everything you went through for training and schooling and like internships and practicums and all of this stuff. And then to really show up for your clients. And, it's that like individual shift with people that I believe so full-heartedly in when it comes to how we show up in the world. And the fact that you've dedicated your life to it, like to help people be able to shift in that way and like show up for them is something I know I'm not built to do. And so I respect it tremendously. Yeah. I really. Oh my God. That means so much coming from you because I find your wisdom and your words to be so profound that oftentimes I'm like, shit, can I curse on this? Yes. Fuck yeah. Okay. I'm like, shit, I wish I could say something like that. I feel like that kind of stuff happens. Like a lot of my colleagues and I will talk about how like we almost feel like we're channeling sometime. And I'm like, I have no idea what's coming out of my mouth right now, but somehow it's like meeting the need of the person in front of me. And then afterwards, I'm like, where the fuck did that come from? Yeah. But I feel like you just have such words of wisdom. So give yourself I appreciate it very much. I think you and I both have had a really unique way of navigating our lives, and especially like obviously we're not twins, but we've always had a very twin-like bond and experience because obviously we're not twins. Hello, but we hear each other through the ether. Yeah, and I think sisters. I think in general like have that. That's pretty common, right? And the way that you and I think have chosen to go through the world with so much, we've very much answered the call of self-awareness in a way that is a lot of work. It's uncomfortable a lot. It brings up a lot, but to be really intentional about how we want to live our lives in the face of human challenges. It's not as if we've had things that have happened that are, like more extraordinary than your kind of average thing, right? But it's like how we chose to interact with them and either grow or not grow. Like I was talking to somebody the other day about that. Like, it's like, we all have these opportunities of things that happen. And yeah, of course, like saying like a really major challenge in your life is an opportunity. It's like, okay, it is. Right. Sometimes you can be like, shut the fuck up. I hate this opportunity. But I say that to clients often. I'm like, I'm sorry to be the messenger, but we can say fuck you to it if we want to. Yeah. Right. And sometimes you need to just sit in that space of like, I hate this thing right now. And then once you've sat there long enough and not just like the whole saying, like, it's okay to have a bad day, just don't unpack and live there. For me, it was really transformative because it was like, okay, I can be mad about this. I can have my feelings about this. And then I'm not going to stay here though. I don't have to worry that if I am devastated about something that I will be devastated forever. I just know that right now I feel devastated. And I think that was a big shift. And I feel like that's how you and I have navigated a lot of this and really just been interested in the human process, like the human psyche, where the fuck are we? What are we doing? What does this even all mean?
What is this place?
Yeah, just super existential. I was talking about you on a different interview that'll actually air after this, but I was just saying how like your namesake is Alexandria, which is just wild in general because it's the library of all of the knowledge. Like I'm like, Mom and Dad, they can't even tell me where they got my name. I'm like, why didn't I go to the library? What's that?
It's so weird that you bring this up because we were trying to remember one of our first memories. Oh. So like, where is our first memory? And I think it was like 2 or 3-ish. And I remember sitting on Mom's lap and they said, we want to name her Gretel or Greta. And I said, Greta.
Thank you. Thank you.
You're welcome. So I don't know where they got those 2 names, but I think in the end I was like, Greta.
You're like, I know growing up, people are like, where's Hansel? So like, that would have been really bad. That would have been a lot more.
Totally.
Yeah, Gretel, I'm just 9 forever. But yeah. And then, you were so, like talking about like past lives and stuff like that, like having Egypt was, you were like, let's go back out in your closet. You had a whole shrine to Egypt, basically, and like the hieroglyphic stamp set, which I thought was the coolest thing ever. And yeah, and it was just, we had a very interesting upbringing in that sense. And yes, very interesting childhood. And interests as well. And I think like that's really shown up in the way that we have navigated our lives. And especially like, and again, the choices that we make to be able to live a life that is in alignment, it's a lot. It's a calling. It's a lot. It's a lot of a commitment. It's very understandable why people don't want to do it. And, it's uncomfortable. And I think a lot of times, it's uncomfortable if you do it and it's uncomfortable if you don't do it. So it's like,
there you go with your words of wisdom. Correct.
So I have questions. Like, I'm going to do this a little bit differently than my other interviews. Like, we'll chat about things, but I also have like specific questions for you too, because, like more the clinical side of things.
Yeah.
Because I feel like, I started this podcast really to talk to people who have multi-passionate, who either live a very unconventional life or want to live an unconventional life, but don't really know what that looks like. I want to be able to introduce people to other people who also live unusual lives. So there's more context for it. And so it's not only like, I live this unusual life and I'm a multi-millionaire, whatever. Cause I feel like those are most of the stories. At least that's what shows up in my algorithm a lot. It's like, make your 6 or 7 figures. And that's great. All those things are great.
Yeah.
But it's not that's not like, to me, I have heard too many times of people getting to that level of success and not having quality of life because they didn't really get into their life. They didn't really get present with who they are. They didn't really ground into that. And my interest is more in giving examples of what it looks like for somebody to be really grounded in their life, whatever that, because then it doesn't it matters. Your basic needs need to be met, of course, right? Beyond that, it's like the things that really give us the richness of life come way beyond what our income is from our like coaching business or our entrepreneur thing, whatever, and I've been an entrepreneur forever, as have you. And it's like, I just want to give people other examples of that. So they have something a little more evolved to look to go, okay, my life can have such beautiful meaning and not just be about this like achievement of some sort of, whether it's, status or monetary goal or something like that.
Mm-hmm. Societal's like markers for that you've made it.
Exactly. Because they're always tied in something that doesn't really come down to our human. Exactly. It doesn't resonate with the soul.
Yeah. I want to say one thing to anyone who's watching this. I will fidget a lot, but that's just my ADHD. And I welcome that in sessions and I welcome that as a whole, because it doesn't have to be perfect and it doesn't have to look a certain way. And especially when you have ADHD, like sitting still for a long period of time is just not a thing. And so to all my ADHDers out there, I just wanted to say that my fidgeting, you get it.
Also, yeah, if you're a fidgeter, then like awesome. You're also doing like a little extra movement for the day, which is great.
Yeah.
Which I love.
Like another thing, just getting back to, you were talking about like your audience and how you can have many different interests. I think another thing, and I actually heard this yesterday in a session, and I hear it quite often, that I so want to reinforce the idea that you can start anything at any time in your life. And the idea of getting older, now that I'm getting older and reaching different milestones, I see what society says, especially for women, says around aging, and I ain't got no time for that.
Mm-hmm.
None of it. And also, I have no time for, oh, if you haven't figured it out in your 20s or your 30s, it's over. No. I actually, when I was in any of my schooling, when there was somebody who was a few decades older than the rest of the group, I thought that was the badassest, what?
I got
the most badassery thing ever. Yeah. And I would like, because I started this chapter later, not really, but kind of later, and we saw mom do it in a similar way, that that's where we saw like, oh, we can do that. And I really want to reinforce that for people, that like, if you want to do whatever you want to do, whenever you want to do it, go do it. And don't let society tell you anything else. Oh, I mean, society, we have a beef. We have a beef, woman.
You're Aquarius to your core. So, I mean, there you go. If you know astrology.
And my name, Alexandria, I found it means protector of humanity. Aww. So I always feel like, even though I feel like I'm a protector of like all the sentient beings, but yeah. So society, we can.
Yeah. Yeah. No, I love that so much. And I think, yeah, it's funny, you know, I'm around at the gym, like I'm the elder basically, right? So it's like, and then you have people like, hey, turning 30 and they're like, I'm getting old. And I'm like, don't come on, don't listen. And honestly, 20s are really tough. 20s are like another form of adolescence in a way, where you're just like, what the fuck is going on? It's your first real time that you're getting, like, I think of everything in cycles. It's like your first cycle to go through a bunch of new shit where you're like, it feels like it's the only time something is going to happen and the biggest time. And then once you get to your 30s, you've done a couple rounds, so it feels a little bit less like that.
Yeah.
And then now in 40s, it feels very, very liberating in that sense. It's, I love it. So I definitely, yeah, it's really what you choose. And also, you know, even like just life is the affirmation for me that has been really helping is life is beautiful and I have time. And that helps me ground when I go like, oh my God, I don't know how to get X, Y, and Z done. You know, it helps me stop and look around and go, okay, my life is beautiful. Even if there are things that I'm really struggling with, that I've been struggling with for forever, my life is beautiful and I have time. And if I tell myself that, then I'm able to recognize the space. Whereas before it feels very constrictive. And I invite anyone to use that if that resonates, because it's just a nice, you know, you and I are very big. That was kind of, I think, how we got through a lot of times in our life where we had like little mantras and phrases that kind of helped keep us grounded. Yeah, I have a whole episode on a bunch of those things where it was just kind of like you just shit's hitting the fan and you're like, all is well, I am safe, everything is working out for my highest good, you know, like,
situation only good will come. Yeah. After like almost definitely my coaching sessions, but sometimes in my therapy sessions, and all my clients are just like, I know this phrase by now.
I got it. Yeah. And it's so helpful. It's so helpful because again, our mindset, like the more, I think I started to say this a minute ago, but the more that I am doing this podcast, like I had my kind of vision of why I wanted to start, and it is in that realm, but I find myself really wanting to talk about mindset and everybody's sort of approach to mindset, because the longer I've been here on earth, the more that I personally feel like our mindset is, and I don't mean to say is everything to put pressure on it, but it holds more power than we maybe are like taught, right? Like if you really are able to cultivate your mindset, And it's not something that happens, you know, a lot of times you're programmed with some bullshit mindset from your parents, from society, blah, blah, blah. So you have to like really work to do it. But it's a worthy journey. And then also if you have something like, you know, any kind of neurodivergence or like Lyme disease, it's hard sometimes to actually get your thoughts to be clear enough to get your mindset to change. So I understand all of that. However, it's one of those things that it's a really worthy use of energy if you are feeling like you're in a chapter or in a season of your life where you are just like, feel like you've run out of options or vision for the future or whatever. Taking stock of the mindset that's going on, how you're speaking to yourself, the thoughts that kind of naturally arise, how people around you are speaking, and really just taking a moment to reflect on those things, and then finding tools and resources, which I talk about plenty of them, and I know you have them as well. And that's like, I think such a big part of it. It's kind of like how what's the next like book for your journey? What's the next podcast episode? What's the next teacher? Like I have so many teachers that I love because different times in my life, I want to hear a different voice, maybe say something similar, but tell me a little bit differently. And and that is like for me, that's how I reprogram things a lot. I listen to a lot of different teachers. I read a lot of different books and teachings and things. And I try to examine things from all different angles, which has helped me be able to just have a much better mindset where I can enjoy my life no matter really what's going on, you know, knock on wood, like, you know, to an extent. But I want to hear, you know, definitely, especially let's talk about,
two things really quick.
Yes.
Okay, go back to like aging really quick.
Yes.
AJ, I remember when, I want to say I was in my late 20s. AJ, who is Annie Janney, she is a magical human, and our aunt, she said, Allie, your 30s are going to get better and your 40s are going to get even better. And then your 50s are going to get better. And I remember at 20, like something like when you think that you know everything, you're like, yeah, whatever. And then I got in my 30s and I was like, there's something to this. And as every year has passed now in my 40s, and I like to talk about how old I am too, because a lot of people want to hide it. And I'm like, no, I'm 46. Cool. What's up? But I feel like even in my 40s, like every decade gets better and better. And then coming back to what you were just saying, we live in an immediate gratification society where you can go onto Amazon and you can have whatever you need most of the time in 24 hours. And it doesn't work that way with the brain, meaning that we have built certain neural pathways that are carved from the stories of our families and from our life experiences. But I think this is something that you and I have always known, and then science kind of catches up to it, where neuroplasticity shows that we can rewire our brains and carve new neural pathways. And so it might take a little bit of time, but to breathe through and be patient with it as you're transforming a new mindset, like that's what it's all about. And so to remind yourself, like, why am I not here yet? Like it's the journey. It's the journey. There's so much truth to that. It's the journey. It's like, I will give the analogy of like, life is like climbing up a mountain. And all of the stories that we've been told are the rocks in a bag that we're kind of carrying over us. And like, you can drop that bag and just take a look around and keep walking one foot in front of the other on the path. And you're carving that new pathway towards a new way of thinking.
I love that so much too, because also what you're saying is that, you know, it's like, as you're climbing, you can climb that mountain with all those rocks, right? But it's brutal, right? And then you can also drop some as you go when you're ready, and maybe you don't even realize you have some in your pockets, or you're like, oh my God, I didn't know I had these other rocks that I was carrying. Totally. You're able to let them go, and it becomes easier. It becomes easier to ascend in that way, you know, and it's cyclical, you know, but it becomes easier when you get that big picture. I talk a lot about, you know, having like how we love, you know, talking to nature, and nature being such an example for how to look at things. And I'm sure I talk about this on, I feel like almost every episode now, but it's fine, because it's one of my favorite things, at least it's helped me, is that,
so true.
You know, having, for me, a lot of the issues that I had in my 20s was that I had very much like mouse vision. So it was the whole, I don't have time and life is rushing by me at all top speed. Yeah. And you're just like, oh my God. And it was mouse vision. Everything was like right here, you know, and I didn't have any perspective of the bigger picture, which is the birds of prey, right? Or just birds. But I always think of, we love, vultures too. So like hawks and whatever, they're soaring around and they're looking at the vista, at the landscape, and they're seeing the big picture. And for me, when I do see birds, especially if I'm going through something where I feel like I'm too hyper focused on whatever, I for sure have a practice of like checking that and going, okay, is my face up against the floor right now trying to see what I'm doing? Or do I need to take a minute right now? Yeah. Because sometimes maybe I'm too much hawk vision and I got to get and go, wait, what's those details?
Totally.
Like, I need to get on the floor for a second.
Or it's like, it can be helpful to like look at the details and then like have a hawk, like to see it all from different angles. And
I think that that's the thing, like that is a big thing of what you and I do and what we say. And I always talk about this as this is what it means to be present, is to assess what it is you need in that time, right? To have a conversation with the universe, with God, with the divine, however your creator, however that language hits for you, to speak your mind and then listen and be and like find that connection, which happens in many different ways. I know for you and I, spending time in nature is, and I think for most people, if they do it enough, they'll go, oh, this is probably the way to do it, but there are many different ways to do that. But, when you do that and then allowing something to arise, it's kind of like shaking the magic 8-ball, and you can't see it. It's like underneath and you're like, what's it gonna say? And then it pops up and it's like, try again. You're like, okay.
Yeah, exactly.
So like having that moment, to let it float to the top and see like, okay, what maybe I could take my time a little bit more. Maybe I need a little bit more urgency about this, maybe whatever. And you'll get that guidance when you start practicing. But that's really, to me, that's what being present is, when you start to hear and follow the guidance and it just kind of comes up in you naturally and you tune in and you're very present with the energy of all, of all that is. And it doesn't happen. I used to think that it had to happen all day long, right? And if I didn't have it all day long, I wasn't doing it right because, I don't know, we grew up in Catholic school or something, and I think I have to get everything right.
Yeah, right, wrong.
But yes, it's wrong. So, knowing that you can have a moment of it, and that moment is like when I feel like time isn't real, because it's just like a little boop, and you go, oh, okay, I have a sense of understanding. I have a sense of peace, of knowingness, of presence. And maybe it is a fraction of a second, but it happened and it transforms. Like that's alchemy, right? Like that transforms like so much.
Yep. And it's another carve in that new neural pathway.
Yeah. Yeah.
Something else, for some reason, I feel like I just get these like taps, like say this.
Say it. Yeah.
Like that makes a lot of sense to like when I'm talking with clients, like I feel like a spirit is just like, all right, say this, just like the channeling of like, I don't know what's coming out of my mouth right now, but it's to the person in front of me. I read this really cool article once upon a time in, I think it's Spirituality magazine or something like that. And it's a psychologist, a clinical psychologist. And he talked about how we revisit things. So even in carving the new neural pathway, even in going through the next decade of your life, the universe will have you like revisit and be like, how are we doing with this? So like, I'll just use the idea of boundaries. Like if you learn how to establish boundaries, you're constantly throughout life going to be reestablishing boundaries. But what he used was a slinky. And so, because I'll have clients be like, I feel like I'm going backwards. Like everything I learned, like, I'm like, no. It's not how it works. Like you have more information now. You're a different person than you were before. So there is no backwards. It's kind of like a slinky where you're constantly going up. But you might have to come back around and be like, how are your boundaries? Like maybe we need to rework them. Maybe we need to reestablish them or look at them differently. And so there's never a going backwards. There's always a moving forward. It might be just a revisit. Like I'm trying to think of like how to use the metaphor of the rocks. There might be a rock in the middle of the road where it's like, that's the rock that I left back there, or a similar rock. Like, do I want to pick this rock up, or like maybe I want to put it down and just let it go like I did before. And then I feel like the universe is like, nice work. Yeah.
Right.
And like,
right.
We'll revisit it again and see how you're doing. And then at a certain point, a lot of the things, like I know that the majority of the things, I'm saying this as I'm like thinking about it, the majority of the things that were bothering me in my 20s, like if they were to bump up into me now, like into my face now, I'd be like, okay, like,
Right. You
So
might not
just
even, yeah, you might not even, they might not even
recognize.
register.
Totally.
Right.
Totally.
Like it might just be like, wait, what? Yeah. Like, and I think that's the interesting thing. And I agree. I think of it, April Heaslip, actually, that she would talk about the cycles like that and the seasons. Cause I remember, like going back home or something after college. I forget when this is a while ago, I was talking to her about it. And she was like, yeah, you just sort of like, you revisit and you come back around. And yeah, that's exactly, I try to keep that in mind. I love the slinky because exactly it has that. Yeah, I've always pictured, but I was just kind of like a spiral. But we are literally in a cyclical pattern around the sun. So it's like,
right.
The seasons and all of that, like to have some kind of like, as much as we can spend time in the ethereal plane and like woo, our consciousness, I think the cool stuff happens when we ground it with the earth part of it, right? And the seasons and the earth, like literally put those two things together. And sometimes I feel like there's a disconnect in the spiritual world with that, where it's like just up here, and then most of society is like earth, like gravity and drawing down, so, but again, it's that union. That's why, like, even with our chakras, right? It's like the lower and the higher, they boop right in the middle. So, having that, having that like understanding of I do love this. I know like seasons of like, some of the girls I teach are like, I'm in this season, and I'm like, I love that you guys are saying seasons. That's great. That's beautiful.
I mean, that's returning us back to nature where, I mean, if there's any mission I have right now, it's to get us back.
Yeah. Oh, you're doing incredible. We should talk about like your video. So on TikTok, you've had your
love doing it so much.
Incredible nature videos.
Well, I live in an incredible place. It's pretty hard to take a bad picture.
Yeah, but you've been real. Like, listen, I know
you're an amazing.
Growing as a cinematographer, it's beautiful. Yeah,
coming from you, that means a lot. But it's honestly like I have missed being creative in this way. I didn't even know it until I started doing it. And like every morning when I create it, I'm like, or when I do my meditation videos, I'm like, because I get to be out hiking in nature and capture these moments and be really present with it, and then take it and then take some science and take some studies and research and then present it. And I feel like I'm infiltrating social media in like a positive, helpful way.
I love that because I talk so much about creativity in that way, where exactly how you just described it, you get this like, oh my God, and I think, it lights you up. And I think that there's, when we're creative, it teaches us a way of channeling, for lack of a better word. And it's important, just like I was saying, when you like tune in and listen, right? And that would be one of the ways you could like get in touch, right? Is do something creative. Cause, I don't know the neuroscience behind it, but I know just from being, that's all I do really is make things. And it's like, when you get to that space, you, are using a different part of your brain in a different way. And I think it's important for us when, in a very practical sense, when we're making decisions in our life outside of the creative portion of things. And I think that people, if they practiced creative space more with themselves, however that looks, it doesn't have to be anything artistic necessarily, like conventionally artistic, but just the space to like not have any rules and just let it be kind of like whatever it is and like see what comes out of you. I think that really helps people when it comes to making decisions about hard things that they need to do or like what they want to do next, because they've practiced a unrestricted kind of thinking and channeling or whatever, and then it allows them some other options to come in that they would not have considered had they only been like, okay, I need to make sure this happens at this time and then this, so that's one reason, like I'm always telling people, find something that helps you get into that space, because exactly what you said, you get like, like when I am composing, I'm like, oh my God, it's so much fun. Like, it's so much fun. And you,
like with time stops. Like it feels like there's a different flavor to the energy that swirls around you when you're in that creative process. And it feels, I think that we as beings are very creative. I feel like humans are very creative. And if we can remember that, and the best way too, I believe, to remember that is anything before the age of 8. What did you love? Go explore that. Go look back into that and see what it does.
I love that.
It opens crazy doors.
I love that so much. I think that's really incredible advice for somebody if they're like, I don't know, like I want to do that. That sounds great, but like I don't really know where to start with that, you know?
I think one of the things that I find in the world is that people are like, you should do this, but there's no like examples of it. And so the way that I at least do my therapy is like, I'm big on psychoeducation. I'm big on giving tools so you can add more to your tool belt. So any tools that you want to talk about here, like I'm totally down to do that because yeah, it's like, just find the things that light you up. And it's like, well, where do I start? 8 back, look at it, see it, remember, like play around, like go to the kids section of, I don't know, Target and be like, oh my God, I used to love that. Why? Oh my God, I used to love this game, play it. Or, oh my gosh, Mom, what was the thing that I was obsessed with when I was like 3? Oh, you loved, I don't know, trees. Well, then go hug a tree. Like, go do it. Just go hug a tree.
Go hug a tree. Go hug. It's okay. It's okay.
I dare you.
So, all right. So I'm gonna flash ask you some questions. Is that cool?
Ready.
That okay. Maynard just actually deleted them all. So, 1 second.
Maynard's like, no.
Okay, got it. I looked down and it said it was just blank. I was like, okay. All right. So obviously I know your path, but I want to kind of share just a little bit, especially if people are feeling a call to do something that maybe seems like they're like, I don't know if I should do this. I don't know if I'm ready to do this X, Y, and Z. And, especially like and you can make it however long you want, but your journey into deciding to become a psychologist and how like life experiences shaped it, how your own neurodivergence shaped it. And like with that path, anything you would maybe give some insight and advice for somebody who might be in a similar position where they're like, I think I want to do this thing that requires a lot from me, and how should I go about doing that? Can you not bite the electronics, please? Thank you.
I think it's a combo of things. I think it's do things that scare the shit out of you. And I'll get into like why examples. And sometimes listen to your living teachers. They might have gifts, and like I sometimes I'll get the analogy. I've never played this game, and this is gonna show like the age or the generation I'm in. But Zelda, you know how like I think in Zelda, like you had to like you did something and you got like a gem, or you got like a sword, or you got the
I did a whole episode about this. Yeah, about how life is like a video. Yeah, and
Zelda, I didn't watch it. But okay, so we're get out of here. We're carving the neural pathway deeper with this, but like I feel that some of the things that are presented to us are locks to keys. Or keys to locks or swords that we need or gems or whatever. Okay, so let me explain what I'm talking about. Okay, so from 8 until about 25, I was an actress. Professional actress, lived in Los Angeles, manager, agent, Betty White's agent. What's up? Was on television, all of that, and then saw very quickly that a lot of it wasn't about talent. It was about other things, and I wasn't willing to do those things. And so I was like, I'm out. So then I came back, and you showed me a newspaper clipping of a yoga teacher training. And this was like way before they were like all the thing.
Yeah.
And you were like, I think you might like this. And I was like, well, fuck it. What else do I have to do? And I was like I was like a pastry chef for a second. And I was just trying all these things because I was lost. I was literally almost groomed to be an actress my entire life.
You were.
Even though before like the age of 8, I was obsessed with history and spirituality. And I mean, all the way through that time, I was looking for ghosts and spirit and haunted places. And anyone who knows me throughout all of my chapters are like, oh, you still into ghosts? Yeah, I love it. But it's like a different flavor now, I think. But I went to this yoga teacher training, and within it, they talked about the chakras. And for some reason, the chakras specifically, like I was like, say what? And this is before like, I don't know. Was it before social media? It was Instagram, I think was 2012. So this is way before that.
Yeah, this is way before that.
Yeah. And so no one was talking about the chakras. And I was like, what? And then she talked about Reiki. And then you and I went and did Reiki 1, 2, and 3. Mm-hmm. And then we started doing sessions. But in the sessions, people wanted to talk. They wanted to be seen. They wanted to be heard. And although it was working and the channeling or whatever was coming out of my mouth was helpful, I didn't feel like it was like ethically okay. So I was like, maybe I'll go back to school and get my master's in counseling psychology. Now, I was the worst student ever. Like school and I didn't get along. I found it very boring, and that gets a lot into neurodivergence. And so I kind of I felt like I was being given like the sword or the gem. Like it was just like, no, you need to go into this program. And I was like, okay. So now I'm in a counseling psychology program, and I was definitely older than a lot of the people, very quirky. Like I did all my papers on like psychology and Reiki, and people are like, or yoga. Now, like that's what they use in so many places. But everyone at the time was just like, this girl. But it was very helpful for do things that scare you. And then right as I was graduating, Dr. Donna Alberici, rest in peace, she pulled me aside and she's like, you're going to apply for the doctoral program. And I literally like laughed, and I was like, you're crazy. And she's like, no, you're going to do it. So do things that scare you. And also there are these teachers that come along and say like, hey, go that way. And I was like, what? And I interviewed and I got into a clinical psychology doctoral program. And I think about like people like from way back when, if they were guests, they'd probably be like, she was an actress, or like, I mean, I don't think it was in anyone's like mind that I'd become a clinical psychologist. So anyways, the doctoral program was one of the hardest things I've ever gone through. It was long and it was a lot. But in my pre-doc, California has always called me back since I lived there in my early 20s. And everyone, like, you have to go through this horrific program in pre-doc to get an internship. And I was like, I'm not doing it again for my postdoc. And everyone's like, you are crazy. And I was like, call me crazy. I'm not doing it again. And this was, again, listening to kind of my intuition and things that scare me. Like, I wanted to move back to California. And I did my dissertation on self-care and was talking to an amazing supervisor of mine about self-care, came back to my office and saw an email. And like, it's just like these emails that you get from all these different things that I was using for my doctoral program. And I was like, for some reason, it just said something about self-care. And it was this beautiful article. And I felt like I was almost reading like the way that I think, like not my words, like I'm not going to give myself, oh, it was beautifully written. Not like that. It was beautifully written, but like something about it felt so familiar. And something, and this has only happened probably 2 or 3 times in my life. I got this wave of tingles. I don't even know how to describe it, because unless it happens, it's so infrequent that it's happened. But I just heard like, if this person is from California, you're emailing them immediately after you finish reading this article. And at the bottom, Dr. Elizabeth Butler, one of the most amazing humans I've ever met, has a private practice in the East Bay in California. I wrote to her, and within an hour, she's like, you probably have a postdoc with me. And then I had a postdoc before everybody had gone through the program. That's horrible to go through. And then I think 8 years in September, 8 years, I moved to the East Bay and started working in, I always wanted to do private practice, because as a true Aquarius, I don't want to be told what to do. And being in the residential treatment facilities, and you don't call them institutions anymore, but it's that kind of setting, like you are not able to do what you want to do. And I wasn't going to go through all this training told by someone who knows nothing about psychology, like in insurance companies and stuff, what to do. And I was like, I'm out. And she showed me a different way in a private practice, and I've never looked back.
That's amazing.
Was that the question? I don't even know if that was the question you asked.
That was incredible. I've never really heard you say it. I've never really it's not like we get together and I'm like, so tell me how'd you get into
Right, exactly. Tell me about something that I've lived through with you.
Yeah, tell me your life story real quick. What's your name?
Right, exactly. So, yeah.
No, that's beautiful. I love that, because it's so much about, like you said, like listening. I mean, life really is like a video game. Like I think before we started officially in the podcast, I was talking about, right now we're going through, Matt and I, like our own next level, right? Like we went through a few levels that required a lot of just faith, perseverance, vision, trust, and just like, and then action. And doing those things over and over and over again. And then, we succeeded in the other ones. We're in one right now that is definitely like kicking our butt, but also, I was saying to him, I was like, we've done it already. We've done it before. And this is like one of like video games. Not that I was ever like, I was always watching you play video games. I was like, what are we doing? But
the 3 that we have, like Mario.
The 3 that we, yeah. Or watching whoever play. Yeah, I was always, but basically for some reason, it's a very strong analogy, I think, for both of us.
Yeah.
But yeah, you typically video game levels get harder, or at least more involved because they are building off of skills that you had that you already just developed. So now, it's like, and I also, of course, always relate things to martial arts in the sense it's like belts and stripes. So like a lot of times to ground myself, or if Matt and I are having conversations about things, I'm like, okay, we went through this thing, we got a stripe. So like in martial arts, you get some schools do it where you get stripes as you level up in your belt. So you might get 4 stripes and then you get a new belt. And it's a nice way to break up that time because sometimes depending on what martial art you're doing, you may have one belt for several years. So during that time, you're just like, what is that? Am I getting, you don't have any feedback? Am I doing this right? And life, I think, is like that so much. And I think, having that kind of like marker throughout is helpful. And then, like you said, like the mentors, and this is why I am so, first of all, honored to be able to teach anybody especially with martial arts or whatever. If you have a question, like I'm so happy to be able to pass anything along.
Such an incredible teacher.
Oh, thank you. Thank you. I think, you and I both are like this, where it's like, we really understand, like I was a good student, but I've always had a really hard time understanding things like, and come to find out about, we didn't know about like neurodivergence growing up. So like, I didn't understand why I had a hard time understanding things.
Right.
But I really have been able to do certain things in my life because I had people who shared their challenges with me or shared their perspective with me or were like, this was hard for me too, or whatever. Or like, and that helped me so much. Or like, this is what I did when I ran up against this challenge. Or that was so helpful for me because I kind of would just sort of like loop the same pattern a lot. Like reading a book, they wanted to hold me back like I think twice in 1st and 2nd grade. They were like, she's just reading the same book over and over again. Yeah, like she won't. Yeah. And they didn't know. And they thought that I just like didn't know how to like read like another book or something. And somebody was like, well, give her another book. And then I was like, oh, and then I would read that book over and over and over again. They're like, well, give her another book, and having that, like having people in our lives where we can recognize, like I think that's the key. Like if you're in a place in your life where you're like, I don't fucking know, just starting to have a little bit of awareness of like where you are getting some insight, or like just listening to where they'll start paying attention to how other people that you admire and you like what they're doing, right? Like it resonates with you, not just like whoever whose life is a mess. They're like, well, I think you should do this. Yeah. Not in that sense, but things that speak to you, people who are either doing the things that you want to do or have similar values that you're really trying to like align with, but paying attention to those things and paying attention to the people who are giving some insight into the next steps, or allowing inspiration is like such a big thing, right? Like you get inspired and it's, I think that we have so many things being thrown at us all the time. It's hard to know when we're really getting inspired or being manipulated by, all the things, right? So that's why I think it's like good you get quiet and start to see where your actual inspiration is.
It's like a good reset button because it's like a quiet, but it doesn't feel, I mean, at least to us, and I don't find it boring at all because there's so many things happening and it's so magical. It's crazy. But it's a nice, like, quiet away from the phone or from work or from family or friends or whatever. Lots of stimulation of other humans to just kind of like, what do I want to do? Where do I feel? What lights me up?
Yes.
But I feel like, honestly, like, it's interesting going back to like what I had said about being 8 years old, like there's a lot of wisdom in that.
Oh my God. Yeah.
Or like purpose and direction. So really returning to before the age of 8, there is incredible wisdom that I don't think is really discussed all that often. That should be.
So what would you suggest to somebody who hears that and they go, "Ooh, okay, I want to investigate that further. That resonates with me." Like, what would you suggest, like a couple places that they could start to work with?
Yeah. I think potentially, well, okay, so I'm a very visual person. So like maybe getting out like a photo album and looking at pictures from back in the day and looking at like what was around you in that room, because sometimes we forget. Right. And so like, oh my God, look at that stuffed animal back there, or look at that book back there, or look at that game back there, or whatever it is. So like, and then talking to your parents about it. Like, what was I completely obsessed with? You were completely obsessed with dinosaurs. Oh, that's weird. Okay, let's just use dinosaurs. I was completely obsessed with dinosaurs. Okay, then you go to the Natural History Museum and you stare at History Museum? I don't know, one of the Smithsonian's, and you just stare at some dinosaurs. Or you watch something on YouTube about dinosaurs. And you just let that, like the breadcrumbs will be there for the things that light you up. And a lot of the things that lit us up before the age of 8 have wisdom from the other side, from source. And so like from I'll use myself as an example. I was obsessed with Egypt and it doesn't make any sense. Yeah. No one in the family was obsessed with Egypt. There was nothing. I remember getting this. It's called like, it was National Geographic's like Our Space. And I have it somewhere because I was opening it up and I was reading about all these ancient, spiritual, mystical societies from all over the world. And I was like, what is this? So now looking at like how I do my private practice, so much of spirituality, dependent upon the person that I'm working with, is woven into it because I feel that it was part of my path to be integrating, especially in the field of psychology. Like, you don't really talk about spirituality and that. And it's such a part of us to know, like, where do we come from? What are we doing here? Very existential. So yeah, looking at old pictures, talking to family, and maybe I should just create this. I on my YouTube channel with my meditations, I like walk the line of like kind of clinical, but like I never want someone to go to a place that's dangerous, that you need a professional with you. But it could be cool to do like some kind of meditation where you sit with like your 8-year-old, 6-year-old, 7-year-old self. But dependent upon your history, there's other things that could pull up. So, but you could sit with your therapist and be like, can I do some inner child work? And then you have a safe space to explore that way. So those are some of the ways that I would.
I love that. And I think, something like you're saying, it's really important, just the importance of having somebody to help you with this process is huge. Like, granted, we've done a lot of our own work and self introspection and all of that, but the biggest like hurdles I did my part that I could do, and then I worked with my therapist through the rest because I needed somebody who I could just rattle off all of the things. She can hear me, and my therapist she's such an incredible listener. So I felt very heard. And then she would just say a few things back that would just kind of help like adjust the story that I just said or whatever. Like, she so good, just a couple things being said. And I'm like, okay, thank you. It was an anchor. She gave me a lot of good anchors. Yeah. And depending on what the person needs, right? Like that's what I did. But I think that just to impress upon the fact how I think it's getting better. People seem to be a lot more like, oh, therapy. Like it makes sense. Everyone's going through so much. We all collectively went through so fucking much. And it's very I feel like people aren't, it's all underneath. Like we're all like, I'm fine. It's 2025. It's fine. But there's so much that needs to be processed still. And, having somebody who can just hear you and maybe they're not even saying very much after it, but they're listening to you so you can just get it out of your body at least. Right.
Oh my God.
And especially if you had some, like you said, if it's inner child stuff and you had, some trauma going on or something before the age of 8, and having somebody be able to be with you there for that. So as you process those things is so incredibly important. So yeah, I think just like a little moment of like therapy, having a therapist is like, and it's not available all the time. Like I didn't have, insurance at the time when I was working with my therapist, and she was very very graciously help me figure something out. And there are therapists who will be able to do that. And then there's some that it can't, but there's plenty, like there's so many options for it now. And I just think if anybody's listening to this and they're like, oh God, I really would just love somebody who's not related to you, not your friend, not your family, no one who knows anything about you. Just, but
it can be so helpful. And I think another thing with finding a therapist, it can seem daunting. It can seem, society is definitely starting. I mean, I know that like the younger generations are like, therapy. But you definitely want to, and I'm going to use like my acting words for this. You definitely want to audition or interview a ton, and follow your gut with it. Sometimes you'll like meet the right person, like right out the gate and be like, done. Yes, let's do it.
Yeah.
But, the entire therapy experience is going to be the best with therapeutic alliance. Research shows that you have to have a good alliance, a good relationship, a good trust with your therapist, or nothing's going to really work because you're not going to want to share. And so don't feel like you're doing anything wrong or it's not going in the right way. If you're like, I am now interviewing my fourth therapist, you've got to find the right.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think, having, this is where like you and I are so big on signs and having like that communication with the universe to kind of like a little wink and nod, like, yep, keep going. I know when I chose my therapist, I was very much like, I need one yesterday. Like that was the kind of energy I was like going into it. I was like, right now. And, but I asked, I was like, just show me. So I looked at a bunch of pages, whatever. I found one lady and I was like, all right, I'll give it a go. We'll see. And I wasn't totally sure, like her website and her picture, like I couldn't tell. And I was like, I'll go and I'll meet her and I'll see. When I walked in, she had crystals everywhere. And I had a crystal jewelry business at the time. And I really wasn't, the previous therapists I'd had before that were a lot more on the clinical side and they were wonderful, whatever, but it wasn't totally aligned and it had been a while. So I walked in and she's just got like a giant labradorite. Like I'm saying like giant crystals. Like she was, and like this huge, I don't know if it was like from like a Buddhist temple or whatever, but it was like this beautiful like bridge and like tapestry on the wall. And it was amazing. And and then when I talked to her at the end, she referenced something about, maybe like going outside and just putting your feet like in the grass and I had really, I was just like, my life right now, I was like, blah. And that was what she said. And then she also was talking about, like protecting myself from white light. And my initial reaction, I'm going to share this for anybody who has a similar kind of thing. My initial reaction was like, I know. I was like, I know, white light, whatever, But I was like, Greta, shut up. I'm like, listen to her. You came to her. This is what she's telling you. And you know what? It's not like it is correct. You've just been doing it a long time where you're like, yeah, whatever. But maybe come back to that beginner's mind and go, okay, let me actually listen to this for the first time again. And let me really acknowledge the fact that when I'm intentional about, if I'm going into a space where it's like chaotic energy, like I'm intentional about visualizing it doesn't need to, in a previous episode, I talked about kind of like having like a bubble and then being transformative. And at the time I needed like more protection, right? As opposed to, I didn't feel strong enough to come into a room and be the vibe. Yes, that was the whole, I was like, shields,
Right.
But I'm like, let me listen to this again. Let me be intentional about those things. And let me try it again from a beginner mindset. And it helped so much because I wasn't going into it being like, yeah, I do energy work already. I do
Yeah, that's like ego place.
Exactly. I was like,
we do it all the time too. We all do it. That's human, but like,
yes.
It's very ego place to do it.
Yeah.
And that goes back to like the slinky where like, you might have this information, but you're a different person than when you first obtained that information. And so now you're coming back around and you're hearing it again. We're going to hear, when we read a book for the second time, we grab things differently. When we hear a different concept, we grab it differently. And again, it's carving the new neural pathway as well.
Yes. Love it. Love it. Yes, exactly. If you watch a movie like 20 years later and you're like, oh my God, I did not realize that this
like
Little Mermaid.
What the fuck is that about? Like, what is happening?
My best friend's wedding is like,
but I'm like,
I know my best friend's wedding is such a villain story. We're like, oh my God, this bitch. What is she? The things they were like, isn't this romantic to us in the 90s? We're like, oh my God. And then you're like, this is really fucked up. Actually, this is so rude.
Julia Roberts, whatever she's in. Now I watch it. I'm like, what is this movie? But we did just see The Matrix again for the first time. And that movie still as good.
Oh yeah.
Like, I was like, oh my God, this movie, the special effects are like, okay, but like ahead of its time.
Yeah, so ahead of its time. Yeah, absolutely. All right, so let me look at some more questions here. I love everything you shared. So
Okay.
love it all. Love the shoes, love the dress, love everything. Just to bring it full circle. So I want to know. We talked about neurodivergence. I mean, if you want to give, I think people maybe either think they have an understanding of what it means.
Yeah.
But especially like when it comes to, I'm a little bit more interested, like neurodivergence and highly sensitive person. First of all, is it like neurodivergence and highly sensitive is one of those little boops, and then and then I personally, because I'm highly sensitive, I think for a lot of people, I don't feel like that term is as known in a way.
Yeah.
And I think it's really important because I don't think it necessarily means like I'm such a can, like I'm sensitive. It's like you sense a lot. And so like I had a little episode or a little thing I was talking about for health reasons when people are, because I was always, you're sensitive. And I'm like, yes, it took me a while to be like, yes, I am sensing a lot. That's different than
right.
being real. So, okay. So go ahead.
Okay, so let me just give a definition of neurodivergence just for anyone who isn't aware of it. Because also I feel that it's like many things, like the word narcissism or bipolar a couple of years ago, like people throw these words around and it gets like kind of bent and tilted. Okay, so neurodivergence basically talks about an individual whose brain functions, processes, and perceives the world differently than what society has coined to be typical or neurotypical. So we just look at things differently, process differently, function differently. And so under the umbrella of neurodivergence is ADHD, autism, highly sensitive persons, dyslexia, dyspraxia, learning disorders, and then there's sometimes there's like other high flyers, but those are like the big ones under our umbrella. So highly sensitive persons is under the umbrella of neurodivergence. Going back to therapy really quick, being a neurodivergent therapist and a neurodivergent person, if you are neurodivergent, and this is probably going to maybe get people upset, I really truly believe that you need to be with a neurodivergent therapist. Mm-hmm. Because having this kind of lived experience, it's very hard for someone who is neurotypical to understand neurodivergence. And I've found that time and time again. Neurodivergent people have been invalidated for so long because we are different than the world we live in and told that we're weird or we're dumb or something's wrong with us or we're too sensitive. None of that is true. The beauty of the world we live in is that it is incredibly diverse and that we are an amazing percentage of the population that helps people look at things differently, just like a neurotypical person helps us look at things from a different angle. We're looking at it from all different angles to then find our truth or find our understanding of it or wisdom within. Highly sensitive person was discovered, it's a genetic trait discovered by Dr. Elaine Aron. And she is from San Francisco. I want to say it was 91 that it came out. But when I was going through school, like none of this. And one of the reasons I love living in California is California, for a lot of like the things that I'm interested in, it's the forerunner for it. So in this area that I live in, actually I live on the Central Coast now. So up in the East Bay, like HSP, it's becoming more and more well known. 8 years ago, when I was in the private practice for my postdoc, it was becoming a little bit more known. So it's growing, probably very organically growing. And one of the things that Dr. Elaine Aron says, and if you want to go to hspersons.com, that's an amazing hub where you can take like a quiz about it.
I think you have it on your website, don't you?
Oh yeah, I do under FAQ.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah. All right. I'll put that in the show notes.
It's an amazing hub. All clinicians, like, so if you're listening to this from Montana, there's going to be clinicians there. Like, so it's a really great hub for lots of things. But she calls being an HSP a superpower in that, and the best way that I can explain it is that our senses, and again, it's a spectrum. So the way that I experience it's going to be different from you and so on, but we have the similar flavors. So when I walk into a room, I know I sense energy. immediately, and I can very quickly, I smell, it's like there's a candle in the corner of the room that smells a certain way. I'm like, mm-mm. If I sit down on the couch and there's like a certain blanket that's like, it might be scratchy, like the texture, I'm like, mm-mm. The sound might be too loud, or like if you hear sirens go by and you're like, wow, that was a lot. I feel like this is part of being an HSP, but it might be more like just being an intuitive. Like I can walk into a room and know like that person's fighting with that person over there. Like that person is, maybe it's a clinical psychologist to me. That person needs a lot of attention for some reasons. That person over there is really grounded and got like a peaceful energy around them. And this person is from my planet. I always say like finding people from my planet, it's always the best. And so it's a superpower in that you're not too sensitive. There's nothing wrong with you. You're not weird. It's that you read the depth of situations through the senses much deeper. And so if you're with a group of people, you kind of know like someone over here might need a blanket, or maybe I do need to turn, the music down because it's too loud. Like the subtleties in the environment are things that you're going to pick up on in a different way than a neurotypical person.
I think, I love that. I think, so I'm curious about like, so I'm thinking like somebody who's listening who, let's say you're like, all right, I think I am really highly sensitive to these things. Does it mean that, and I'm just sort of like, this is not my actual question, but somebody's question probably is like, okay, the blanket's too scratchy. Like, okay, I come from, I trained martial arts forever, very uncomfortable. Everything I do 5 nights a week is like willingly uncomfortable. And yet I'm a very, very like I've spent a lot of time teaching myself how to make choices that I know are uncomfortable, that I'm gonna do, blah, blah, blah. And I had to learn how to know when I'm violating my boundaries for the sensitivity, if that makes sense.
Yeah.
And then when I'm rubbing up against those boundaries for my growth, even though I feel it and I'm sensing it, it doesn't mean it's wrong. It just means I sense it.
Yeah, it's such a good question.
So like I'm navigating that space.
Yeah, I think that it's definitely case by case and it's situation by situation. I think that having a shit ton of tools in your toolbox. So for instance, like we have this amazing farmers market in town. Amazing. I can't wait for you to go. But I mean, 1 trillion people show up for this thing and it can be really loud. So there's this amazing tool called loops. They're earplugs that you can put in your ears that you don't lose the sound. Like you still can hear everything. It's just muted. So I'll have my loops with me. So I know that if like there is music blasting or people screaming in a way, like joyful screaming, but like, I'm just like, this is too much.
Yeah.
Yeah. I have my loops with me. Or if I know that I have to go to something and there's going to be a lot of people and it's going to be a lot of draining, my boundary might be like, all right, it's uncomfortable for me to go, but I need to go for connecting or just being with friends or whatever. Then I know that I need to go. My window of time due to like my sleep and like the week that I had will be, I can stay for 3 hours and then I go. And I'm not gonna be like, I'm sorry, I have to go. Like, I gotta go. And the more that you're just like, gotta go, love you, the more that others are gonna be like, okay, cool. But if you're like, I'm sorry, people are like, well, and then but then I know that like I need to recharge. But that's I'm giving myself as an example. Everyone's gonna have a flavor, but like then I know that like for the next 2 days during my weekend, like I have to be out in nature in order, especially with the work that I do. Like I need to recharge significantly before then I go back into work with sessions again. Right. So having lots of different tools that are specific to your sensory inputs will be really helpful. And if we want to like slide over to ADHD, like having something to fidget with you, like, or with autism, having something to fidget, like a squeezy ball, or like even just like the rings on your hand.
I'm sitting here playing with my rings. Yeah,
totally. Yeah. I don't think I have anything on me at the moment, but I typically have something near me that like during sessions, it helps me to stay focused. So knowing more about yourself and exploring that, not judging yourself through it and being like, there's something wrong with you. Like society will tell us, or like, you're weird. Fuck that. No, instead, find the tools that work for you and then have them with you so that you know that, you're not going to wear a sweater that's going to scratch you. You're always going to have like yummy, like Vuori clothing. Oh my God, it's a dream for those who are like sensitive. Or, having like the loops are like my favorite. Like when you travel, like having earbuds with you, having earphones with you, headphones with you, making sure that like your favorite podcast that will bring you joy if like the plane's overcrowded and there's, a screaming baby, like whatever. Like it's just the thing, like and the other thing that's great about being neurodivergent is that you learn through time and you're kind of good at predicting like, okay, if I go to this place, these are probably the 5 things that I might encounter. What are the things that I need to bring with me or have like ready to go that can help me like get through that? And then what's on the other side of that? Okay, I'm going to go on a really great hike, and that it's going to recharge me again. Does that answer the question?
Oh yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. Because I think, you're saying like knowing, all of this is knowing ourselves, right? Like I think ultimately, and my friend Mary that I've talked about forever, I don't know if she listens to this yet. I've talked about her so many times. I'm like, Mary, Mary's my friend.
Brought up April earlier. Hi,
yeah.
April.
I know. I talk about Mary and April all the time. And yeah, Mary would always, whenever, she was my friend who was older than me, and I would take care of her dogs, and we would just sit and chat, and she's just the best and so wise. And she would always be like, I always say, know thyself. And she would just say that and be like, know thyself, and like to thine own self be true. And she would just kind of like leave it there in a way, like not really elaborate on it. And it's funny, this past year in particular, that's come up a lot in a bunch of different ways. And that's what you're saying too, and it's not a know thyself in a judgment way. It's just like, you just have a list of like, these are the things that are, like you said, that I may encounter. How do I just get ahead of it and plan for it? And not like, how do I plan for just all of it? Just take that out of there. Just do it. Just like pack your lunch, whatever, get your sweater, do the things. Yeah. It helps so much to have that kind of mindset especially when you're learning how to deal with these things, and you're like, oh my God, I've been dealing with this my whole life, and I didn't know that no one else like was going through this, or that it was different for other people. That makes so much sense now. Like getting to know those things. How would you suggest somebody on the flip side of it build resiliency so they don't become too fragile about it, where they're like, I can't go there because I don't have my loops, or because it's too loud, my loops aren't going to do, or the sweater, the blanket, I'm gonna how do you get people to build? Like that's something for me. I know I can give you, I guess, my insight on it, but I want to know from the clinical standpoint.
I feel like I'm going to give my standpoint on it. It comes back to like doing things that scare you, like I have a chronic illness and I am completely obsessed with Pilates, and it scares the shit out of me. And it is the hardest thing ever, but I do it, and I do it because it scares me and it makes me stronger, and it helps with my mind and my body and my spirit. And so still doing the things that scare you, but having the tools with you to like take the edge off of things. But avoidance will only bring more problems. And what you resist will persist. So know that the universe is like, oh, are you not going to hide away from the world? Okay, so we're going to bring you the world, and like
right.
And so being aware of self and being aware of the breadcrumbs, there's a lot of different things, and it's all going to be in different seasons. Some days you're going to wake up and be like, I got this. Some days you're going to wake up and be like, I didn't sleep last night and I feel like I'm going to die. So I need to like bring all these tools with me because, it's just my resilience is not as high right now, and not judging ourselves for it. Because again, judgment is just like that bag of rocks where we're just like, oh my God, One of my favorite tools for helping with judgment is Dr. Kristen Neff. She's like the self-compassion guru. She's a clinical psychologist, and she has an exercise called What Would You Say to a Friend? So if you don't have the words for self, and you're starting to learn a new way of living and putting tools together, our society trains us to critique ourselves, to criticize ourselves, to judge ourselves, all the bullshit. And this exercise instead, because we're really good at critiquing ourselves and criticizing ourselves, but if our friend is suffering, we're not going to be like, you're an idiot. We're going to be very loving and like, it's okay. Like, do you want a hug, or what can I do? Do you want me to just listen? That kind of energy you think about what would you say to a friend when you're going through a hard time, and then you turn it back to yourself and you say that to yourself as you're carving the new neural pathways, as you're placing the rocks down and climbing up the mountain, as you're building your new toolbox. Like all of those things will be really helpful in these changes. The other thing is, especially with HSPs and a lot of, I'm going to stick with HSPs, transitions and change, we humans don't like it, right? In general. And then we really don't like it. Being an HSP. Oh. But as Grammy said to us, oh my God, I think every single one of my clients would be like, oh my God, how many times is she going to say this to me? The only thing that's constant is change. So the more that we can like ride the wave, and this kind of goes all the way back to what we were talking about in the beginning, like, you know, life is going to bring us these examples, these revisits and all of that, but it always changes. So if you're having a shitty day or having a really hard time, like learning how to function now, knowing that you are neurodivergent, like it's going to maybe be hard in this moment, but that too shall pass. And then it'll be okay again. So like just to ride it as you're on the journey.
Yeah. And I think it goes back to the perspective thing that we were talking about in the beginning. And also I'm thinking just on a personal note, I really love, as we were talking about the cycles, right? And coming back to things, I think personally, I'm probably going to start doing this. So if this resonates with anybody, where it's like, because like recently we've rewatched some movies that I haven't seen in a long time, and they're so different. And and I've just like seen other things and whatever. So I think when I'm coming up on stuff, at least in this chapter of my life right now, I'm going to try to look at it as though I'm watching, like if it's very familiar, okay, I'm watching this movie again. What do I see differently this time? As opposed to getting all like, I've been through this before. Oh my God, it's never going to change. Because that's usually how it feels, where you're like, it's happening again. And it's like, well, some things are happening again, but it's not like the same. It's not the same thing. Our brain just tells us it's the same thing because it's like the known, we know what happened then. And now to look at it a little differently is like a fun way to, I always like to, this is the way I thought experiment. This is literally why I'm like, how can I think about this differently so that I don't get stuck in that loop?
Yeah, it's cognitive behavioral therapy. You're reframing the situation. Like, what gifts are here for me? What wisdom is here for me? Like, yeah, what angle can I take that's different?
Than like, how is this different than like, instead of like, oh my God, this is exactly like the past. Well, like, how is it different from the past would be like, help you differentiate.
The present me now, like, how do I see this differently? And also try not to do it with stress and strain. Like, I need to do this perfectly. And I mean, no. Nature doesn't operate that way. And the more that we can return to that kind of energy of like just curiosity. I was watching something the other day and it was like curiosity and creativity. Man, they will take you beautiful places. So just remaining curious with self as you learn more about yourself and the experiences around you to see where the breadcrumbs lie.
Yeah, I think curiosity is like, when I started the description of this, I thought that it sounded kind of funny in the description. So I went with multi-passionate, but multi-curious sounds like a different podcast. But
yes, it does.
Not saying, I don't know how multi-passionate doesn't translate that way, but you know what I'm saying? So I'm like, but having that, I think curiosity really keeps us young too, like keeps us youthful, keeps us, again, present. Well, the more present you are, the more alive, literally like alive you are, because you're in that moment and everything in your body just like lights up. I'm going to second what you said also about like how you go to Pilates and do something that scares you. Like, I know I've been afraid to do everything since the moment I got here on earth. Everything scared me. I was scared of our cousins. I was scared of like, I was scared. Like if you were tall, I was like, oh my God, I was just terrified of everything. And still am, but I've done it enough now to be like, okay, I'm like, fuck, I don't know what I'm doing.
Yeah, you're such a fucking badass.
Thanks. I just really, I just encourage, I want to just second that because it's very much like I still get nervous to do things, and still go like, I have no fucking clue how I'm going to do this thing. But I've done it enough to know that if I don't stress and strain about it, but just show up and just, when I say do my best, I don't mean like do my best. I just mean like, just be intentional. That's what I mean.
Totally.
To be intentional and whatever that is the best that's going to happen at that moment. And I'm almost always, I'm surprising myself and things work out better than they did, or, it's not as scary. It's like so much more easeful. It takes that pressure off.
And also, funny happens. Like, I feel like some of the stuff I've done, like the scary things I've done, like the funniest, weirdest, goofiest
Yes.
story comes from it.
Yes. Yeah. And I wouldn't be, like, I wouldn't be who I am had I not said yes to things that scared the shit out of me. And training, like you said, going to Pilates, like same thing with training I'm such a huge advocate and obviously martial arts, but things like Pilates, something that makes you have to dig deep in a way that is building. If you have the right community around you that helps you, like Kundalini was a good example too. If you've got the right teachers who can take you to the place you don't want to, it's like little ego deaths. So you're just going through little ego deaths, and you're just
totally,
like, so
I
like,
would love to go back and take with her again. She was an incredible, what was her name? She was an incredible teacher.
Sadika Salter. Yeah, she was. She helped me, especially during that time. Like I was so sick with Lyme disease when we did that. And I was like, I don't want to be outside of this bubble. And truth, I was not ready to be pushed outside of the bubble, but she reminded me, because I hadn't been training at all for that time. And she reminded me of my strength. And I was like, oh, right. I'm like, I used to kick some ass. I'm going to fucking go do that. So, like when we have those ego deaths, right, it just really helps shift things back into perspective. And whether you're doing martial arts or something physical is really important, I think, for those things. Because again, we're talking about, especially if you're like us and you're like super esoteric, right, and existential, you need something to physically ground you back down. And whether, and again, obviously being in nature is a huge part of that. And also in nature, you can get real flirtatious real quick. If you're like us, you're just like, so sometimes, so sometimes, doing those physical practices helps us just be like, oh my God, my body though, and especially jujitsu, you have a person on top of you, you're just like, fuck.
Yeah. Well, I mean, we live in a society that I don't know where I read this, but like, we're basically like floating heads at this point. We are so detached from our bodies that physical, and me, like I've always hated working out. I'm like, it's so dumb. But I went with a friend to Pilates and I was like, this is terrible. And it has been life-changing and brought me back into my body. And, the body keeps the score for a lot of trauma. So doing physical activities can be really helpful for the release of trauma, the release of just excess energy. If you're ADHD, like it can just getting to know your body, since we're not taught to know our bodies. Like we literally are just floating heads.
Yeah.
That there's just so much benefit to that. But doing something scary, like when I had to present my dissertation, I forget what it's called, and you were there for that.
Yes.
That was terrifying.
I'm so proud.
But I think the other thing that thank you. The other thing that I find often when we're talking about like fear and anxiety is that like we create these like hurdles of fear and anxiety in front of us. And what our acceptance commitment therapy says, our brains are storytelling machines. And so our brain's going to be really good at trying to protect us in an upside down way from going over that hurdle, right? Mm-hmm. And so we have this horrible story of what's going to happen. And I think that the percentage right now is 91.2% of the things that we worry about never come true. And when people actually go over the thing that scares them over that hurdle and they look back, they're like, oh, that wasn't that bad at all. And to remember those moments for like, this is going to be fucking scary, but if I can get over this, historically, it's always been, oh my God, my brain told me something so much scarier than it happened. And I did it. And so, yeah, I think that all of these things are important.
Yeah, I think exactly. Like, and I think especially as people become, this is why I wanted to kind of harp on this part, because I think I see so much like from when we started doing all of our energy and spirituality and all of that, and like those who came before us, right, who really paved the way for us to be able to get into it. And then now here we are. And our culture has gotten somewhat more compassionate in some senses. There's like circles of like, I shall hold space for you. I'm a safe space. And also having that Sadika kind of vibe. Like I remember when I was like, I feel like I'm going to throw up and pass out. And I told the story in one of my episodes, but I told it because, I was trying to, and I did, I was like, and she goes, well, if you throw up, we'll clean it up. And if you pass out, you'll wake up. And I was like, oh, all right.
It was so great.
And it, I felt in the moment, I was kind of like, you don't understand, but I understood what she was, because, I mean, for me, because of my martial arts background, I saw it as a martial arts thing. Like, yeah. I was like, oh, right. I just got to like not toughen up. It's not that. It's just that you're stronger. Like you're letting the bullshit get in the way, and
Sure.
and we'll know if there's a real scenario that needs to like be addressed, but like that's not it, you know. And I think what I'm trying to articulate is that as we become more compassionate and safe spaces for each other, and this kind of mindset of like highly sensitive, or sorry, as I'm highly sensitively feeling this hair just in my, it was just like it's still there. All right, whatever. Resiliency. I shall not pay attention to it. It's fine. So, you know, as we learn how to have that other side of things, also helping each other maintain our strength and resiliency in those moments. So it's like being the friend in our community, let's just say, like our friends and all of that, as we show up, to also reflect back to them, like, you got this though. Like, yes, this is really overstimulating and I'm here for you, and we'll figure out however to help you like do that. And if you need like quite whatever, but like, don't let it stop you from the thing that is calling you, because the world, there's so much bullshit out there that will try to get in your way in that sense. And you know, some days it does, and that's fine. And then some days you're like, I'm going to just keep going. And I think that that's the evolution that kind of was missing. Like, that's where I love to think of it that way, at least, that, you know, before we grew up in a society and culture where it was just like, especially go and do it, you know, like fucking, and then now I see a lot more like gentler, like vibes coming through. And I hope to see those two come together, because if it's too gentle, then you're just like protecting bubble, don't ruin my vibe.
Yeah,
but
you won't grow.
You won't grow. And there are people who need your vibe and who need you to get through that so they can also benefit from the healing, right? Like, if we just stay in our little bubble, then we're not going to be able to help our community at large, because we're not getting outside of our bubble.
Totally.
So yeah, so like, I love that. And I just, as a side note on Pilates, because I thank you for talking about it to me, because again, you were like, whatever, with like most exercise, you're like, get out of here. And you were like, it's changing things for me. So I haven't been going to like a class, but I started doing the Marie Steffens YouTube. And so she does some Pilates, but she does a lot of mobility and strength. And I'm just going to say, this is like off topic, but also I'm saying it because we're both like loving it so much, especially if you do jiu-jitsu, especially if you have any autoimmune things going on and your body hurts, especially if you care about being able to move around as you get older. Like, the thing I'm really enjoying about any of the Pilates, strength, mobility, any of that kind of stuff, like, I've had back pain since I was 17 or something crazy like that, along with Lyme, pains that come up. But I started doing these classes, and I do like maybe 3 a week, and they might be like 20 minutes or 30 minutes. It's not a big thing. I knock on wood, I don't have back pain anymore. And I couldn't possibly be more like everybody. So especially, and I mean, I do a combat sport many times a week and put myself in precarious situations. So it's like, to just harp again on this does have to do with us bringing in, you know, all of the spirituality side with our body, because as you and I both know, like, I've lived for over 20 years with an autoimmune disease that forced me to have to get to know life differently, because I couldn't I couldn't ignore, I was debilitated, you know, and I know you had the very similar kind of thing. So it's like, to have a physical practice that helps you support all of that sensitivity, because especially if you have anything autoimmune, not only are you highly sensitive, but now you're sensing all of the things that are going on even more, and a lot of times they go together. So it's like being able to have something that structurally supports you.
Yeah.
And I love yoga too. Honestly, I gotta be honest, I've not found the same benefit from I practice yoga since I was 16. So I think yoga has a place as well. It's just it's a different spot to it. Yeah, it's a different spot. And I think that doing something where there's the strength component of doing mobility exercises with it is incredibly important. I'm going to say, especially for the kind of people that are neurodivergent and highly sensitive, it seems like it really makes a lot of sense, because it gives you security in your body where you're now, and this is what I like about Kundalini too, like breath of fire and things like that. To me, I always picture breath of fire as if I'm like, because you're and you're like blowing out your aura and it's like helping feel more sustained, right? So if we give ourselves a more sustainable body and energy, all of this other stuff that we're talking about becomes so much easier.
Yeah. And I think this kind of is like a thread, maybe just woven through everything we're talking about, especially with, I think all humans, but especially with neurodivergent people, validation that what you've experienced has been tough, what you experience can be difficult, like that can be so helpful, but it's gotta be, I kind of give the metaphor of like walking a tightrope where like one side is like validation. Let's give the honoring of like, yeah, like all the things. Yes. But then like, where do you want to go? What's your goal? You know? And so for me, like I was ready to become strong in my body. And I got so many messages of like, okay, you've worked on your mind a lot, Miss Aquarius, but time to work on your body. And so it's like the validating of like, oh my God, this is going to hurt. Oh my God, I'm scared. Yeah, all the things. But my goal is to become strong and to age gracefully. And so I'm going to tightrope. It's like the balance of anything. I'm just going to balance my way through this and honor all the parts. And we can talk about part too. But like all the parts. So yeah, validation is huge in the process of all of the things that we've talked about so far.
Yeah. Yeah. I think, okay, so I have a billion more questions, but I think that we'll save it for the next one, if you're good with that. Yeah. I feel like we've done like, I feel like we like offloaded a lot of really, really good, succinct information. I want to talk about your dissertation. I want to talk about the parts. I want to ask you everything. Like, tell me everything. Because I just think, my hope, my reason for doing this is that this helps somebody who's listening with whatever their next steps are. Like that literally, if one person is listening and goes like, oh, okay, I just heard something, it hit me differently and I'm going to take a different tact and that helps. Oh my God. Like that literally, and like that's my inspiration to do anything in the world, honestly. Cause again, that's what happened. That's how I've experienced life. Being highly sensitive and just feeling like a fucking weirdo alien person most of my life and not knowing that anybody else felt that way. I just felt like something was wrong with me.
Yeah, superpower. Like you have a superpower. Like, and I'm so grateful for you having me on because I want people to know that there's nothing wrong with them. Like they're absolutely fucking beautiful. And two, I've heard this from so many people. I'm so frustrated with people who are like, so I was having all these problems and then one day I just woke up and it was all better. Like, it doesn't work like that. Like, the movies will show you it works like that. And I can't tell you how many people come to therapy and they're like, well, am I just going to wake up and it's going to be better? It's like, no, like, we gotta work on it. We got to explore it. We got to like look under the rocks and like drop the rocks and like all the things. And all of that is beautiful and wonderful. And through that experience, like, you're going to get to know yourself more. But to talk about the hard shit and to talk about tools to help you through the hard shit, to validate the hard shit, acceptance, commitment therapy talks about like life is messy. Like it's all good. We're beautifully, imperfectly messy, wonderful, magical beings. And if we can talk about that and give space to like permission slip, that's actually a strategy to like be like, I'm giving you a permission slip today to be like, it's okay to be messy, or it's okay to like talk to yourself like you would a friend, or it's okay to validate that this has been hard, or it's okay to put your loops in because it's too loud, but to go do that thing that you want to do, or like all those things are beautiful. And so if I can, thank you for giving me a space to talk about those things too. Yeah.
Oh my God, absolutely. And with that, well, yeah, exactly. Like you said, like, I think it's, I forget which teacher said it, but basically it's Buddhist, I'm pretty sure. But, pain is unavoidable, suffering is not, so it's very much like, yeah, we're having whatever you think of what our experience is, it's a human one, which is filled with everything. And there is, like you said, avoiding it does not avoid it. It'll come find you. So we choose which kind of tough road we want. And I don't mean that in a dark way, because there's when you're intentional about it, then you actually get to receive the joy that you're avoiding if you don't choose that path. You actually get to have the richness and fullness in life. And when there's something that you know, we've seen plenty of people, which has really inspired me to make sure I'm on top of my own consciousness and experience, where we've seen plenty of people have something tough happen and they just stop, and they just try to like not have anything bad happen ever again, and they just like crystallize there in like a fun way, not in a magical way, in a not cool way. And then you see other people who go through something, you know, you go, oh my God, that's even worse, whatever. And they take the invitation from spirit to evolve and engage with it. And I'm not saying it's easy. And I'm not saying I'm like, yeah, you know, like I'm going to be like, oh my God, this is my invitation when like bullshit's happening. It's fucking terrible and scary.
But have your temper, but then let's get back to it.
Exactly. But like, at least you know that, you know, there's fertile ground. Was that one? I think it was Cynthia Ocelli, or I can't remember her last name.
So much better. I had no idea.
No, I'm literally just pulling this out of, I don't actually, Cynthia something, but she had a quote, and it might've been from somebody else. I just remember her saying it first, but it's like basically, you know, being underground and like having the seed crack open and the fertile ground, like the fertile ground that which we grow from is like, seems like a bunch of bullshit. That's not her quote, but it has an effect where it's like,
yeah. It can be like your quote. Like, you're inspired by that.
Oh, it's such a great quote that I just gave. I hope anybody even understands what I'm trying to say. You know, the fertilizer, fertilizer, which is really just shit, and we get to grow from it like mushrooms. They love it, and they're magical. Yeah, grow from your shit.
Well, there's a book called No Mud, No Lotus.
Yes.
You know, or like, I like to give the analogy of life, like when people are like, everything's so difficult or challenging, like your unconscious, your subconscious, it's listening. So I like to use the word like, it's an adventure. Some days we have flat tires, and some days we see beautiful sunsets, and all are needed for growth. And that is beautiful. Without the mud, there will be no lotus. You know,
and again, we can't avoid those things. Is really it. So it's kind of like it's happening. Yeah, like it's happening. So you got to figure out how you want to respond to those things, and have the tools and have the resources and have your like team around you. And so speaking of that, I want to talk about just to wrap us up for today, because we'll definitely keep doing this, because we could talk for 3 days straight, easy.
Day 3, we're like, yeah, and then this.
Guys, we're gonna do a live marathon. We're just gonna keep going.
Oh my gosh, that would be.
It might be very entertaining for somebody. Someone. So you practice in California, and then you also do offer. So like, if somebody wants to see you as a therapist, you can see them in California. But then also you offer spiritual coaching worldwide, universe-wide.
Yeah, universe-wide. If you want to call me from Mars, I'm your girl.
We can do it.
And then I have a YouTube channel that I'm cultivating right now. I just started it, and it's got really short. I'm finding that everyone loves like 2 minutes and under meditations. So it's got a whole bunch of different meditations, and then I do like mindful strategies, like really quick ones for like TikTok and Instagram and stuff like that, just because I want to try to reach as many people as possible with tools to like help you through this thing we call life, aka the adventure.
I'm going to include all this in the show notes. And would you just real quick differentiate between like your services so that people know?
Oh, yeah. Okay. Yeah. The easiest way that I can describe therapy versus coaching, therapy traditionally, like we're going to dig backwards and find out more of like the family dynamics, parental dynamics. So therapy, you look back and bring it forward. Coaching is more goal oriented. So like, I have a goal to do X, Y, and Z. It's more like forward thinking. So if you are suffering from, and I feel like majority has an idea of like what depression and anxiety and all that feels like that's therapy. But if you want to do like in my coaching, like we can do anything from past life regressions to oracle cards to astrological things. And then we weave that all into like goal setting, and I kind of like hold you accountable. Like every time we get to meet, I'm like, how we doing? In a very compassionate, non-judgmental way. But within like therapy, it's really kind of unwinding a lot of the wounds. And so in the world of psychology, you have to be licensed in the state to work with the people in the state. So I'm licensed in California, so I work with people in California for therapy, but coaching, I can do it.
Right. So if somebody's like, I would love to just like talk to you about these spiritual esoteric concepts and like maybe do a card reading and kind of just like get my bearings. Maybe they've already done some like inner work with, maybe they have a therapist that they work with for the inner stuff. And they're like, all right, this is what I fucking learned my last therapy session. And I'm trying to make sure I put these things into place in my life so that I can, you know, get like my business moving or just feel like I'm more grounded in what I'm doing. I just need to like center my energy more. That's kind of more where that spirituality coaching is.
Yes, but I don't know if I really like hold to this rigidly, but if you're working with someone, I think it's better to be working with one person than to have a whole bunch of people that you're working with, because you're going to get all different kinds of stories that get kind of complicated and intertwined. So for coaching, if you've done a lot of the work therapy wise and you're done with that and you're like, now I want to move forward and, you know, shine bright and look for the signs and all that stuff, then coaching is going to be your realm. But like, if you're in California, you're like, I am going through it right now and I'm so depressed, then therapy would be good. So, but if you have, like, I remember someone once upon a time called me and they were like, I have 3 therapists. And I was like, excuse me? Like you want one therapist, one. And then like, if you have like a couples therapist, like it depends on like
what. Yeah.
But to have like a therapist and a coach, like I'd have to really like see what's going on within that scenario to feel that, because it can be a lot to unpack and uncover, and it's helpful to just like have one person walking with you. That's just other people might have a different point of view, but that's where I run.
No, but that, I think that I mean, it just from a logistical point of view, that makes sense, right? Like when you have doctors even just trying to communicate, like I have this person's blood work over here and this is one thing and then this over here. You're like, what is the big picture? But yeah, I like kind of an idea.
Too. Like I'm all about like, what's the most ease-filled, simple approach that we can take, especially being neurodivergent. Like so many things are coming at us, like you want it to be like as ease-filled as possible.
And so is that something like if somebody's, for instance, because that would actually be like, I would say for a lot of neurodivergent people, if they're looking for a coach to help them just like, hi, this is like what's going on. I need to simplify what I'm doing because there is just like whatever, like that's kind of in that realm. I love that. Yeah. So it's like, because you always do that with me. You're like, wait a minute, hold on. What are we doing?
I love simplifying. It's like my favorite. Like, I feel like I'm almost like, you know, like people like are professional organizers. Like I feel like I'm a organizer of the mind. I'm like, wait, let's get rid of that. Sweep that out. Okay. Let's put this over here and make it, you know, like I just,
no, that's like, I know you're so good at that. You're so good at it, at doing it. And also just like recognizing when it's time. You're like, all right, we got too many things coming here. Let me like just simplify this and in a gentle way, helping just like reframe and like get that going. Yeah. I was curious because like we haven't really, and we've talked about it obviously, but especially like for people listening to this, like I want people to like have an idea of like, okay, this is, first of all, just even like in general, oh, this is why I would do this, or this is why I would do that.
Yeah. A lot of people do, like, it's a very blurry, people cross the lines and blur. And like I had said, when I told you about like my story, like I'm very focused on being as ethical as possible. And what is the best for the person in front of me. And so like, there are people that have come to me for an intake, and I'm like, you know what? I don't know if this is the, you know, the best fit, or I don't know if this is what you're actually seeking. And so, I'm very much about like honoring what is needed for the person, but also knowing the difference between therapy and coaching can be confusing. I mean, the different, I have so many people who are like, oh, so you prescribe medicine? And I'm like, no, I'm not a psychiatrist. I'm a psychologist. The only reason I would know that is because that's my world. Right. But to get that makes sense. So
people don't know if it's not your, exactly. A lot of times people, when they're in a profession, don't realize that people outside of the profession, they have no idea what they're like, what? You have to. Like, welcome. Yeah, exactly. All right. Yay. I'll put all of this in there. I love you so much. This was exactly what I hoped for and more. Really just wanting to share this, like, this is, I hope the people listening have gotten a lot out of this, and at least we're a bit entertained, and our silly asses, and you know, just you're not alone. Like, I think that's like, you're not alone. There are other weirdos like you out there, like us.
People from different planets. There are
We're
people
from a different planet. Yeah.
Yeah,
And I
we're
say weirdo with the most, like, I love.
yeah.
Yeah.
I'd rather
I'm
be
like,
weird.
yeah, I would much rather be weird. All right, we'll wrap here. And then
Okay.
we'll wrap. I'm going to do the arms. I love you so much. Thank you so much for doing this. I cannot wait
Thank
to
you for having me.
Yes, thank you.
for having
Thank you. I love
me.
you so much. Thank you.
I love you.
I love you. Bye. Bye.